The air in Los Santos crackled with the electricity of an impending Friday night. Downtown skyscrapers blazed with the arrogant brilliance of a million LEDs, each tower a monument to excess. The streets throbbed with life, CEOs in sleek suits barking into Bluetooth headsets, tourists snapping selfies with Vinewood stars on the Walk of Fame, street racers tuning their souped-up chariots for the night's illicit contests. Up in the Hollywood Hills, overlooking the urban sprawl, a different kind of energy pulsed. Exclusive mansions, hidden behind towering gates and guarded by armed personnel, hummed with the quiet anticipation of lavish parties about to begin. On the corner of Vinewood Boulevard and Eclipse, a group of friends, veterans of countless virtual heists and firefights, gathered in their usual spot outside the neon-drenched haven of the Diamond Casino and Resort. Tonight, a palpable tension hung in the air, a shared unease that stretched far beyond the confines of their digital playground. The sun, a blazing inferno sinking towards the western horizon, began its nightly striptease, as the sky morphed into a canvas of fiery oranges, deep purples and blood-red streaks. The city held its breath, poised on the brink of transformation. For a fleeting moment, Los Santos seemed to shimmer, a mirage of concrete and glass on the edge of something vast and unknowable. Then it began. A flicker, a stutter. The lights of Los Santos began to sputter and die. First, a few isolated blinks in the dense grid of downtown skyscrapers. Then, a rolling wave of darkness, cascading from the hills down to the Pacific, swallowing everything in its path. Inside the Diamond Casino, the steady hum of slot machines and the clatter of chips on felt abruptly ceased. The party in the penthouse suite, a bacchanalian spectacle of champagne bubbles and designer drugs, ground to an awkward halt as the music died and darkness descended. Within seconds, the vibrant tapestry of Los Santos, woven from the threads of millions of flickering pixels, had been reduced to a chilling tableau of shadows and silence. Panic spread like wildfire through the darkened streets, fueled by the unknown and amplified by the echoing silence. The digital heart of Los Santos had stopped, and the city held its breath, waiting for the next beat, unsure if it would ever come. For the players logged into GTA Online, the blackout was more than just a loss of power. It was a breach in the fabric of their digital reality. One moment they were cruising down Del Perro Pier, the virtual sun glinting off their windshields. The next they were staring at blank screens, the digital echoes of the city's soundtrack replaced by an unsettling silence. Frantic messages flooded the game's chat, a digital cacophony of question marks, expletives, and panicked speculation. Was this a server crash, a hack, a publicity stunt gone wrong, or something far more sinister? The uncertainty was more unnerving than the darkness itself. They were adrift in a digital ghost town, their avatars frozen in time, their fates uncertain. Across the city, players found themselves in varying states of digital limbo. Some were caught in the midst of high-speed chases, their virtual engines sputtering to a halt as the power grid failed. Others were frozen mid-heist, their carefully laid plans dissolving into chaos as the lights went out. For some, the blackout was an inconvenience, a frustrating interruption to their digital escapism. For others, it was a source of amusement, a chance to revel in the unexpected chaos. But for a growing number, the blackout was a source of genuine fear. The line between the virtual and the real began to blur. The city, once a playground for their wildest fantasies, had transformed into a digital prison, its darkened streets echoing with the unspoken anxieties of a community in crisis. As the initial shock subsided, a new kind of order began to emerge from the chaos. The rules of the game, once dictated by lines of code and server protocols, were rewritten by the primal instincts of survival. Alliances, forged in the heat of virtual firefights, were tested as the darkness revealed the true nature of the players behind the avatars. The streets, once the backdrop for harmless virtual mayhem, became battlegrounds where digital lives hung in the balance. Amidst the chaos, a glimmer of hope emerged. Players, united by their shared predicament, began to band together, forming impromptu communities within the game. The most unsettling aspect of the Blackout was the silence from Rockstar Games, the creators of GTA Online. The company's social media channels, usually abuzz with updates, announcements, and interactions with the game's massive community, were eerily silent. The official GTA Online status page, the go-to source for information on server outages and maintenance, displayed only a cryptic message: services unavailable. The lack of communication fueled the flames of speculation. Wild theories circulated on Reddit forums and Discord servers. Some claimed that the Blackout was a social experiment, a way for Rockstar to study player behavior in a crisis scenario. As the hours ticked by, the silence from Rockstar became deafening. Amidst the digital pandemonium, a tight-knit crew of 4 seasoned GTA Online veterans found themselves navigating the darkened streets of Los Santos. There was Jax, the strategist, his mind a steel trap for tactics and escape routes, his fingers dancing across the keyboard with practiced ease. Next to him, Maya, the getaway driver extraordinaire, her reflexes honed by countless high-speed pursuits, her grip on the controller as steady as her nerve. Across the virtual table sat Kai, the hacker, a master manipulator of code and digital security systems, his eyes scanning lines of text on his multiple monitors, searching for a way to exploit the Blackout. And finally, there was Omar, the muscle, a force of nature in both the virtual and real world. His booming laughter a stark contrast to the tense silence that had descended upon their digital playground. They were a crew forged in the fires of countless virtual battles, their bonds strengthened by shared victories and crushing defeats. As the crew navigated the darkened streets, the eerie silence punctuated by the distant roar of engines and the sporadic crackle of gunfire, they quickly realized that the Blackout had exposed a different side of Los Santos. The usual boundaries between players, the rivalries, the alliances, the unspoken code of conduct had all but evaporated in the face of this unprecedented event. Some players, gripped by fear and desperation, resorted to desperate measures, preying on the weak and vulnerable. Others, fueled by a warped sense of justice, took it upon themselves to enforce their own brand of law and order, often with brutal and unforgiving consequences. But amidst the darkness, the crew also witnessed acts of extraordinary kindness and compassion. As the night wore on, the crew, guided by Jax's strategic brilliance and Maya's masterful driving, managed to avoid the worst of the chaos. They secured a heavily fortified safe house in the Vinewood Hills, its panoramic windows offering a commanding view of the darkened city below. From their vantage point, they could see the flickering lights of other players, like fireflies in the night, each one representing a story of survival and resilience. Kai, hunched over his makeshift command center, had managed to tap into the city's emergency broadcast network, picking up fragments of news reports and police chatter. The lack of information from Rockstar Games only amplified the sense of unease. Despite the uncertainty and the ever-present danger, one thing remained constant: the grind. Even in the midst of a citywide blackout, the allure of virtual wealth and status proved too strong for some to resist. Rumors spread through the darkened streets of a hidden bunker, untouched by the Blackout, where a high-stakes game of poker was taking place, the buy-in a king's ransom in virtual currency. The crew, their coffers running low after days of scavenging for supplies and fending off attacks, found themselves drawn to the promise of easy money. The journey to the rumored bunker became a descent into the bowels of Los Santos. Gone were the familiar landmarks, the towering skyscrapers and neon-drenched boulevards, replaced by a labyrinth of narrow alleyways and abandoned subway tunnels. As they ventured deeper into the Undercity, the crew encountered a different breed of player. These weren't the weekend warriors or the casual gamers caught off guard by the Blackout. These were the denizens of the digital underground, the hackers, the glitchers, the exploiters who thrived in the shadows of the game's code. The Blackout, for them, was not a crisis, but an opportunity. After a harrowing encounter with a group of hackers who hijacked their vehicles and drained their bank accounts with a few keystrokes, the crew found themselves at the mercy of a shadowy figure known only as the Broker. Rumored to be a former Rockstar developer with an intimate knowledge of the game's inner workings, the Broker had become a legend in the Los Santos underworld, a digital kingpin who controlled the flow of information and illicit goods. The Broker offered them a deal. He would lead them to the high-stakes poker game, but in return, they would owe him a favor, a task to be named at a later date. Desperate for a chance to replenish their dwindling resources and with few options left, the crew reluctantly agreed. The poker game was everything they had imagined and more. Hidden deep within the sub-levels of the casino, powered by a generator that hummed like a mechanical heart. A group of players, their faces illuminated by the green glow of the table, wagered fortunes in virtual currency. The air was thick with tension, the only sounds the clatter of chips and the occasional muffled curse. The crew, their nerves on edge, bought into the game with the last of their savings, their every move scrutinized by the other players, their reputations as skilled veterans preceding them. The stakes were high, but the potential rewards were even greater. A single winning hand could mean the difference between surviving the blackout in relative comfort or being forced to scavenge for scraps like the rest of the desperate masses. As the night wore on, the game became a battle of wits and nerves. Jax, his poker face as impenetrable as ever, carefully analyzed his opponents, searching for tells, exploiting weaknesses. Maya, her fingers a blur as she shuffled and dealt the cards, used her sleight of hand to discreetly tip the odds in their favor. Just when the crew's luck seemed to be turning, the game took a dramatic turn. A group of masked players, armed to the teeth and radiating an aura of menace, stormed the room. Their leader, a woman with a crimson mask and a voice like shattered glass, announcing their intention to claim the winnings for themselves. Chaos erupted. Gunfire filled the confined space, the air thick with the scent of cordite and fear. The crew, caught off guard but not outmatched, fought back with a ferocity born of desperation and a refusal to let their hard-won gains be stolen from them. Maya, her reflexes honed by countless virtual chases, navigated the room with acrobatic grace, her pistol spitting fire. Omar, a force of nature unleashed, charged into the fray, his shotgun roaring, his laughter echoing through the carnage. Kai, his fingers dancing across his keyboard, hacked into the casino's security system, turning the tables on their attackers, trapping them in a cage of their own making. The raid on the poker game was a stark reminder that the blackout had shattered the fragile peace that had once existed in Los Santos. The lines between friend and foe, between predator and prey, had become blurred beyond recognition. The city, once a playground for shared experiences and virtual escapism, had become a battleground where survival was a matter of luck, skill, and ruthlessness. As the crew, bruised but unbroken, emerged from the casino, their pockets heavier but their souls wearier, they knew that the blackout was far from over. They had won a temporary victory, but the war for Los Santos had just begun. The city, plunged into darkness, had become a mirror reflecting the darkest impulses of its inhabitants, a digital crucible where the boundaries of morality and sanity were tested with each passing hour. Back at the safe house, the weight of their winnings did little to lighten the oppressive atmosphere. The glow of the city was gone, replaced by a chilling void. The silence from Rockstar was deafening. They were adrift in a digital sea. Jax paced the room, his voice low and urgent. This silence isn't random. Rockstar's involved, one way or another. We need to take control. We need to find out what's happening and force their hand. His words ignited a spark of hope in the room. They would not be passive players in someone else's game. They would become architects of their own destiny. Kai, usually a solitary figure hunched over his glowing screens, now found himself at the heart of their operation. The blackout, while crippling for most, had become his playground. He navigated the darkened pathways of the game's code, his fingers a blur as he exploited vulnerabilities, uncovering hidden backdoors. The plan was audacious, reliant on a network of players they had cultivated over countless hours of gameplay. Players whose loyalty they had earned not through threats or promises of virtual riches, but through shared experiences, mutual respect, and a common love for the chaotic freedom of Los Santos. Messages, coded and encrypted, were sent out into the digital ether, reaching players huddled in darkened apartments and internet cafes across the globe. A call to arms, a plea for solidarity, a chance to fight back against the unseen forces that held their digital lives hostage. The response was immediate, a testament to the bonds forged in the crucible of countless virtual heists and firefights. A digital army, united by their shared predicament, was mobilizing in the shadows. Section 3, Digital Lazarus. The plan was complex, multifaceted, and reliant on perfect timing. While Omar, a one-man army, created diversions, drawing the attention of opportunistic player gangs and the bewildered AI police force, Maya, her driving skills unparalleled, navigated the darkened streets, delivering crucial supplies and information to key players strategically positioned throughout the city. But the true burden fell on Kai. He was tasked with the impossible, to breathe life back into the city, to circumvent the blackout and force Rockstar's hand. Hour after hour, fueled by caffeine and adrenaline, he chipped away at the game's code, his fingers a blur of motion, his eyes bloodshot but unwavering. His goal, a server farm, hidden somewhere in the real world, the beating heart of their digital existence. If he could access it, even for a moment, he could send a message, a beacon that would be impossible to ignore. The tension in the safe house was palpable, a suffocating blanket of anticipation and fear. Each flicker on the screen, each whirring of the hard drive was met with bated breath, a silent prayer whispered into the digital void. Section 4, the city holds its breath, and then it happened. A surge of energy, a jolt that reverberated through their screens. The familiar loading screen, a sight they had taken for granted for so long, flickered back to life. Los Santos, bathed in the warm glow of the setting sun, materialized before their eyes, a city resurrected from the digital dead. But this was not the city they knew. This was Los Santos reborn, its streets teeming not with AI-controlled traffic and pedestrians, but with thousands upon thousands of player avatars, all standing still, a silent army arrayed across the digital landscape. In the sky above, spelled out in giant flaming letters, visible for miles around, was a message, a declaration, a challenge. We are in control now. The city held its breath. The collective will of a global community focused on a single point in the digital ether. They had taken their destiny into their own hands, but the question remained, how would Rockstar respond? The blackout had been a test, but the game was far from over. The stakes had just been raised. The Section 1. Digital Dawn. Silence hung heavy in the air, thick with anticipation and a hint of trepidation. The sun, frozen in its descent over the resurrected Los Santos, cast long, ominous shadows across the silent cityscape. Thousands of players, their avatars a silent army, stood united in their defiance, their eyes fixed on the fiery message emblazoned across the sky. Minutes stretched into an eternity, each tick of the clock amplified by the deafening silence from Rockstar. Doubts began to creep in, whispers of resignation rippling through the ranks of the digital army. Had they overstepped? Was this the digital abyss staring back, their act of rebellion met with the cold indifference of a disconnected god? Then a tremor, not in the game but in the real world. Phones buzzed, notifications flashed across screens worldwide. Rockstar Games, silent for days, had finally broken their silence. But their message wasn't one of anger or retribution, it was simpler, more profound, an acknowledgement. On the official Rockstar newswire, a single sentence appeared. We see you. A collective gasp, a wave of relief, a surge of exhilaration rippled through the digital ranks. They had been heard. Their message had cut through the corporate silence, the layers of code, the distance between the virtual and the real. They had taken control of their digital destiny, and in doing so, had rewritten the rules of the game. Section 2. The New Los Santos. The blackout sparked a revolution. Rockstar embraced player collaboration. Town hall meetings reshaped Los Santos. The blackout exposed flaws and united the community. Los Santos was rebuilt with a renewed sense of community. The lights came back on, brighter than ever. The future of Los Santos is dynamic and ever-evolving.